Good day, everyone, and welcome back to the program Fashion Upcycled. I'm your host, John Olashe, and here is my co host.
Okay, Laya Joshua. We are excited to have you back for yet another episode of Fashion Upcycled. It's been a thrilling run so far. We've enjoyed every beat, every opportunity we've had with you, every point of the history, every point of the usage, every unconventional material that we have explored in this Fashion Upcycled. I know we've only spent 1 week, but it's been a wonderful time. It's been an
Exactly.
exciting time, yes.
Last week, we already went through trash bags as runaway pieces, and we explained what they are, what they mean to the designers who make them, how they put it together, etc. And now we'll be going to an even just as conventional, unexpected topic that most of you would probably also never think about: ropes and nets as clothing.
Yes. Ropes and fishing net as clothing. Yeah. And okay, yeah. So ropes and fishing net as clothing, when we talk about that, a lot of things come to our mind. Okay, not necessarily a lot of things that come to our mind, but we wonder, oh, how can that rope that I use when I'm fishing, or how can that rope that I saw in that movie, how can it be converted? How can it be turned into a cloth that people can use, okay, on runways, or a cloth that people can take and can wear in their maybe day-to-day activities, or a fishing net that people can say, okay, oh, okay, I'm using this fishing net, I'm adding it as an accessory. Okay, some people wonder how would that be possible, but we're here to tell you that actually, yes, it is possible. We're going to give you a thorough breakdown, a thorough analysis on ropes and fishing nets as clothing. Am I right, Fiche?
Exactly. When you
Yes.
think of fashion, I bet most of you will probably never think of ropes and fishing nets. Stuff that's in the ocean, stuff that's in rivers, stuff that's in the sea. Why
Yeah.
would I put that on my body?
Stuff that pollutes people, yeah.
Why would I want to put that kind of stuff on my body? People tie it together, people throw it into the
Yes.
ocean, into those dirty
Something that
waters.
yeah, dirty, something that's polluted, yeah,
Why I
yeah.
want to put it all over my body and then destroy it in front of everyone? But believe it or not, a lot of people do this and they actually do it very well.
Hmm.
In many ways, most people will never even think about.
So let's talk about the background. But before we enter the background of the concept, Shay, can I ask you one very, very intentional question?
Yeah.
If it was you, would you wear a fishing net or a rope as fashion clothing?
Well, if I had to say a fishing net or a rope, I would take a fishing net because I'm the kind of guy who'd rather have something all over his body, not just going around one place to another. If I was that kind of if I had to pick between fishing net and just a rope, I would take a fishing net. And
Um,
you?
well, both. It depends, because ropes can also be how like it can also be developed into a way that it can cover the whole body, and a way that you can actually wear it in your day. Yeah.
Like untying it and tying it back together,
And something like that. Ropes can actually also be incorporated into other clothings. You get,
like making them into a belt.
yeah, something like that, or an accessory and stuff like that. So right now, let's look at the background of this concept, the background of fishing nets and ropes. So why don't you take this?
Well, usually when people think of fishing nets and ropes, they're figuring about how strong they are. They are
Yeah.
literally designed for strength. They are literally designed for hauling
Yes.
in
For
very big
hustling,
catch,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
for pulling in very big fish. That is exactly what they were created to do. And in order to do their job well, they have to be strong. They have to be tied together well. If you have a faulty rope or a fishing net, you can't expect to catch anything. And that's exactly how so many of them end up being used up and then thrown away because some people when they're casting, even if that rope is strong, even if that rope is strong or not, it's not necessarily saying that you're going to catch it, and there's no necessary saying you're not going to lose that rope.
Yeah.
If your rope is good and your hand is bad, your catch will just take away your rope with it, and if your net is bad and it cuts, then that's the end of it. It'll just be cast off into the sea and you'll never see it again. And that is exactly how these materials end up polluting so many water environments more than you think. And most fishermen never even go back because, like I say, it's in the water. And once it's in the water, you'll probably never see it again.
Yeah. So long before designers started using it as a point of of designs, clothing, and stuff like that. It was actually used as human survival, like he said, and they actually a testament to human ingenuity. But like going further, you are right. You're right, Jay. Yes, they were designed for strength, not for fashion. But yet the fashion community, as we also its fashion community decided to innovate and decided to turn these fashion materials into positive in I say fashion materials decided to turn these ropes, these fishing nets into positive materials that can be used to
Something unexpected
yeah
ends up becoming more like unexpected and more like innovative.
Yeah. You see that designers also use it to broaden their own view and start looking around for purpose, for environmental impact, and it's actually part of this sustainability. Yeah, because when these things are gathered, when these things are brought in, you discover that oh, they are now recycled and they are now turned into fashion materials. So yes, they're actually made from materials for the last they actually sorry fishnet are actually made from materials that for the last decades
That actually end up lasting for decades.
yes they are
And
made
that
from
actually,
materials.
and that is a very controversial idea to the idea of fast fashion. Since fast fashion, like we said, in highlighting the word fast, it's very people just put things together, and these materials they don't end up lasting very long. Eventually, wear and tear comes, and before you know it, you're throwing away your old clothes. Since ropes and fishing nets are made from materials that would last a very long time, that most designers would think that I can make something good out of this, something that I can keep wearing for years and years and years and never have to throw it away. That is the main idea I feel like that is the main idea when designers pick these up. They feel as if that they can finally create something that will last longer than usual. What do you think?
Well, you're actually right. We see that once they were discarded or once they are discarded into the oceans and to the waterways, they begin to pollute this the um the seas, the oceans, the rivers. They begin to pollute it, and even became so bad that people even gave it a name. Ghost nets means that once they enter, they are not to be seen again. They are gone forever. But it's not supposed to be. Yeah, it's not supposed to be, and this is how people are usually taking this. People usually whenever their nets, whenever their ropes caught, get destroyed, they just carry them, they throw it away and stuff like that you get. And well, it's not supposed to be, but as awareness on this idea began to increase, many people, including designers, asked one question: How could this be reused? How could we turn this into something wonderful? How could we turn this into something amazing? And actually, yes, um,
It can actually be made into something worthwhile.
yes. But you know what? Do you know something?
Hmm?
We would actually digress into that when we come back from the break.
Stay
Yes.
tuned,
Yes.
and we'll
Stay
be
tuned,
right
guys.
back after this break. Please enjoy these brief messages from our sponsors.
Yeah.
The capacity of Africa to heal itself is to put people first. I think that the healing process is coming from the giving and the taking. It's like a philosophy we have. You give with one hand, with your heart, and you are paid back with your humanity, with your tomorrow. In my native language, we say that a lot. What you do today, you will receive the reward tomorrow.
So, guys, yes, we are back from the break. Yes, a very insightful, wonderful break here. And yeah, what do you think?
Well, we just talked about how these materials end up discarded and how they can be picked up again. So now I feel like it's time for us to elaborate a little bit more and explain the history of how these unconventional, completely unexpected materials go from being in the sea to being on our bodies. So let's get into it.
Okay, so when it began, we discovered that designers were very bold on their use of ropes and nets. Yes, they were.
Well, When people started doing this, they were just exaggerating with all these different designs,
Yeah,
all these different silhouettes,
silhouettes.
all these different makeshift things. It wasn't really this seen as fashion, more like just artistic expression. Nothing. It was just a way of just a way of starting a new trend.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
when you're
yeah,
starting a new trend, most people are not really as serious about it as they think they are.
yeah. And when this thing started, these designs were not really seen as clothing. They were mostly seen as art. They were mostly seen as conceptual collections, fashion exhibitions here and there, just trivial thrifts, one or two here and there. They weren't really seen as proper serious things. And people were just beginning, people were just starting these fashions. But let's look at when we began to innovate the later years, the 20th centuries, the 1980s, the 1990s. We discovered that the practice of this of fishing ropes and nets, they began in the 20th century. And then when people identified this as one of the most harmful ocean waste, they now began to experiment with all these ropes. Okay, if this can be one of the most harmful um sea
This most harmful sea waste. How can it
yes,
become something? How can it become something useful?
yes, so we can actually stop the polluting of the rivers, the pollution of the seas, the pollution of the oceans and stuff like that. And come on, let's continue. So with time they began to gather up this
All these different materials,
yes,
ropes,
yes,
nets, even small cords that where they could just pick up on the side. All these things started. All these things started, and before people knew it, they actually started to take it seriously.
yes, and people started turning them into belts, handbags, sandal, and all sorts of accessories. I know then people were still developing then 1980s, 1990s, people were still developing. So it was even a very great avenue for them to like turn these things into accessories, into bags, into sandals, into shoes and stuff like that. And then yeah, it was a very nice avenue because why everyone was still developing. And then why
And
not yes.
and then over time, the people actually started to get more serious with this. Instead of seeing it as art,
Yeah,
they actually wanted to make it into real clothing,
yeah,
stuff that we could actually put on our bodies, something that will
yeah,
actually be appealing to the eye.
yeah.
So they started to actually make these things look more pleasant, look more wearable. So when people see it, they'll say that this is actually real fashion. And when they look at it, they'll probably not even think that they were actually made from old discarded ropes and nets.
Yeah, and as time went on with the avenue of more attention and more awareness, designers began to refine their ideas and they now began to make clothes more wearable, more beautiful, and then they started using thinner ropes, softer ropes, thinner ropes, and then more creative weaving models in order to make this thing more conducive and more enjoyable for the wearers, for the consumers themselves. And then it was rather in the early 2000s, advanced recycling methods started, enabled nets to be turned into high quality, proper fibers and all that. Yeah,
That was a very pivotal moment.
yeah, yeah,
I bet when they started, it was very hard for them to keep things together. But as time passed on and those recycling methods began to develop, I bet it was way easier for them to actually be able to turn all that old trash into something that they could actually be proud of. When that started, it was probably easier, faster, and far more conducive for them.
yeah.
I bet it even took less time for them to finish it all up.
Yeah, and with time they began to turn into yarns, luxury fabrics, and then the most important and the peak, the climax of it, they entered into mainstream fashion. Like I'm sure that's like the best dream any fashion industry can ever have, enter into mainstream fashion. And yes, they entered into mainstream fashion, and today, and yeah, and then they now turn them into swimwears, activewears, and stuff like that. And today, rope and fishing nets has entered into the runway, and then they are used to communicate. They are used to remind people of environmental origins, and then yeah,
That's actually one of the best parts, knowing where the materials came from. That's one of the best parts of this of sustainable fashion. If you know where they came from, you know their history, and then you'll also know the good and bad impacts they're having. That is the main message that these designers want to show on their runways, making sure that all these different materials, all these different materials that are having a bad impact on our
Yeah,
society,
yeah.
on our environment, and our society as a whole. They want to make sure that the message gets out to the people around them, so
Yeah,
they'll see them, so they'll see that this is actually something that is this. There's something that has to be done about this,
yeah,
and they're
yeah.
already doing something about this. So if I was to put this all together, I would say that when these designers finally started putting all these together, sure, at first I bet most of them weren't really serious about this. I bet they were just trying to make a small statement. They were just trying to get some eyes. They were just trying to get some clicks online. They were just trying to try something different since they were probably getting bored with what they were doing. But over time, people actually started to get more serious with it. And by the time when it was all over, the time I bet in this time when they were finally getting to the groove of it, they started to actually enjoy what they were doing. Like they started to actually feel bliss, feel good about what they were doing, feel, and they actually got praise from it. Well,
Yeah,
if you think that do you actually think they got praise for what they were doing?
yeah. I think so. Yeah, yeah. They should have. Yeah, yeah.
That was, thinking about that, I'm glad that we were able to look through that. Please stay tuned with us as we
Yeah,
go.
guys, stay tuned.
Please stay tuned with us as we go through these brief messages from our sponsors. We'll be right back after this short break.
The fashion industry has always been a place where subcultures could thrive. And going with what's happening today, I suppose the parallel would be what happened in the 60s. The world had been, for years, it had been in turmoil and trouble, and the economies were bad.
Yes, guys, we are back from the break. Yeah, wonderful time here. I'm sure you enjoyed the break. And now we're talking about the design process of these garments, how they are turned into wearable garments. Yeah, it's
How
not
they're all
just
put together, how they're all made into these amazing pieces. So let's get into it. When we're talking about the design process, when we're talking about how all these different waste materials are being transformed into all these incredible pieces, all these wearable arts. So the first part that you would usually think about in a design process is gathering the materials. When designers want to pick up fishing nets and different ropes, the usual place you think about is marine locations, or
yeah.
no, locations near the coast, near the beach, near the sea, etc.
Yeah, designers just source their materials from there, and from recycling centers, from fishing spots, from ocean cleanup projects, and sometimes from um waste places where you see them thrown away, and when you see worn out fishing nets, worn out fishing materials thrown away, they usually gather them up. And then once they are done, they move on to sorting and checking to discover the quality of the materials, and those that maybe the slim ropes, okay, they can go here, the thick nets, they can go to this side. This particular category go there, that particular category go there. Okay, the ones that are almost worn out, they all stay here. You get, so they usually do this, and they do this so they will know the quality of the materials, they'll know the types of materials that they are using, they'll know what they are working with, and the ones that are beyond repairs, they also know them, so they can maybe even dispose them from the pack of the other nets and ropes.
That's actually one of the most important parts, because
Yes.
because unless you know what you're working with, unless you know the strength, unless you know exactly where it is the weakest, unless you know exactly how you can tie it together, then you'll never be able to create your work. That is very important thing.
Yes, and it's one of the most important because it helps you know what you're working with. You know what you're dealing with. You know the kind of materials that you are going to be using. And then once that is done, they go through an extensive and intensive cleaning process, and they do this in order to sterilize the materials, to sterilize the product, to sterilize the ropes, the net, so that they don't harbor any form of unhygienic germs or any form of bacteria or any form of fungi or any form of insects or anything that is not supposed to be there. Because obviously, whatever you're giving, these are things that are coming from the sea, they are coming from waste place. So whatever you're giving them has to be properly hygienic, has to be properly,
Exactly.
yes,
You can't expect to sew and then end up getting something bad from it. All these
yes,
materials, like you said, all these materials, like you said, are coming from the ocean, are coming from the sea, are coming from all these different places, and
Yeah.
have been there for who knows how long. They
Yeah.
have to make all these the designers need to make sure they have a thorough cleaning so they can remove all sorts of sand, all sorts of dirt,
Yes.
all sorts of
Also.
fungi, all sorts
Yeah.
of waste,
Yeah.
all sorts of algae, etc.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever might have been caught up in them throughout their time in the ocean.
Yes, and this is done so that we can make sure that they are good enough to sew, they are good enough to knot, they are good enough to weave, they are proper enough for people to wear without feeling any form of irritation, any form of issue or whatever, any form of infection. Yeah, and then after they now separate them. They separate them according to their color, according to their texture, according to their flexibility, according to their thickness. Like I said before, this helps them to decide what parts of the garment will be used for which material, for will be used for that, will be used for this. You get, yeah, and then this is like the creative stage where designers use different techniques to transform their materials. After knowing the colors, knowing what they are working with, they now use this technique whereby they used to transform all the materials into what we call a garment. Yeah.
That's actually I would say my most favorite stage,
Mm.
since this is the part where they can really let their creativity flow. This is the part where they can let their imaginations out and do whatever they want with what they've gathered up. They've done the hard part, they've done the messy parts. Now they can get to the fun part of
Yeah.
actually putting all their ideas on the board and making sure that making sure that their own creativity is known to the people. Like you said, the thickness, the texture, all of that, it's very important because when you're making clothes, you can't expect to make clothes without actually knowing how soft, how it will feel on your skin, how it's going to move around. Because for clothing, it needs to be for a good clothing. I would say a good clothing has to not only be comfortable but also be you have to be able to move in it. And these are ropes and fishing nets. They're not exactly built for something to be moving in.
So when they do this, they use different techniques, different sewing techniques like knotting, weaving, braiding, and some others. And since they are working with very, very stiff, very, very strong materials. The designers now use techniques like layering, they use lining, they use padding, they use different techniques in order to make sure that they are comfortable and wearable because they do a haphazard job. If they do a job that is not quality or not professional enough, people won't be able to wear them, people will not be able to have the best of experience and comfortability in them. Yeah, and they do this and then wrapping up the whole process, they now test how it feels, how well it moves on the body. They if there's any leftover, they could even turn them to fashion bags, footwear, jewelry. But the main part is the clothing. The clothing. They test them to show okay, oh, they are comfortable to walk in, they are comfortable to wear and all that. And
And they're making sure that they can actually present them in front of everyone else.
yeah,
Because if they're going to do it, that means other people will also want to do it.
yes. So they have to make sure that um they are very, very conducive for people to wear. And then what emerges at the end is a testament to human ingenuity, craftsmanship, and innovation, among others. And then, yeah. What do you think? What are your takes?
Well, when I think about this, first, when I thought of the idea, it didn't really sit well with me. I mean, taking stuff that has been in the ocean and putting it in our bodies. When I first thought of the idea, like I bet, like most of you are thinking, it wasn't exactly
Yeah,
appealing.
most people even be criticizing that, oh, yeah, in as much as some people say, oh, this is a wonderful idea, this is beautiful, and here and there. But some people say, oh, no, this is not a good idea at all. This is not a wonderful idea at all. How do we carrying waste materials, things from the dung, things from the dirty places, even if you recycle them, even if you treat them, even if you sterilize them, how to give them people to wear. Some people might criticize, but other people see this as fashion heritage and all that. Yeah. So yeah.
Like exactly, it's something that even though it might not seem appealing, it's something that can actually work. You don't know, you can't expect it to work unless you actually try it yourself, and unless you try it yourself, it's not going to look good. You need to make sure that if you can actually do your best to make it look good, and it actually ends up looking good, then you
Yeah.
feel good about it as well.
Yeah. You were telling me something the other time. You said your aunt has won something like this before.
Oh yes, I've actually seen her try something like this before. She once brought an old fishing net home, put it together, and I was like, "What? Why did you make a bag out of that? Out of an old rope you found on the floor? I mean, what? I was so weirded out by it, and I thought, since when do people do stuff like this? And then she actually showed me how to do it myself, and
Mm.
I actually liked it.
Oh wow. So you'd give it a try some other times, right?
Yeah, of course I would.
Yeah. It's been a wonderful time so far. We've enjoyed this amazing episode 2, ropes and fishing nets as clothing. Yeah, and with that, we've come to the end of today's show. We've come to the end of today's program. Please do stay tuned. We know you've had a wonderful time, and we hope to see you in the next episode. We hope to see you next time here on Fashion Upcycles. I remain Joshua Gelea and Oluwaseyi John. Guys, we'll see you next episode. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. We've talked about it a lot today, and we thank you for helping us. We thank you for seeing us through it. Have a nice day.